All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Trevor Keyler, and today I'm going to be talking about my experience through the years that I've had with Sea Grant and how they've given to me, as with many, a rise here, a lift with this metaphorical rising tide that I'm talking about here. So thank you for this opportunity. So my journey with Minnesota Sea Grant began with the funding of my graduate work. So this all began in 2012 when I received this email here from my advisor-to-be, Tom Robick, and it was asking me just basically if I'd consider working on this project, looking at how Siskiwet lake trout are able to perceive their prey at the depths and very dark waters within Lake Superior. So Sea Grant funded this project here, and we took off with it. So the Siskiwet lake trout lives in a very dark or light-limited environment, as we call it here. So at 80 meters deep within Lake Superior, we're already at 1% of the surface light intensity. So then you can imagine as we move down to greater depths, around 130 or 140 meters, it's very dark, which begs the question then, how are they able to perceive their prey? So that's what this project was investigating. So one of the things we looked at, we want to investigate vision, or how do they see their prey. And one way we do that is by looking at the reaction distance, or how far away is the prey when the lake trout can detect it. So this is measured as then the midpoint between the prey body to the eyes of the Siskiwets. We're basically just looking at how far they can see their prey. So when I arrived at UMD, this is what I saw. We had this tank here, and it was empty fiberglass tank, so I had to get to work. So with Sea Grant funds here, we got to constructing this, what we call the foraging arena. This is where we'd videotape all of the foraging of the Siskiwet. So with the help of an electronically savvy undergrad that we hired, we started constructing this foraging arena here. And it took a better part of a year and a half here, wiring up all these lights, cameras, and then we're done. We had what we see here is this finished foraging arena, and this was complete with overhead cameras that could see in the dark, infrared. We had these welling green LED lights that replicate the light that you'd find at depth within Lake Superior, some external infrared lights. And then out in the lab, we had more set up. We were able to raise and lower the lights as needed. We had, to detect white light intensity, we were testing, video monitor, and then we could record this all and analyze it later. So first we collected our fish with help of the USGS out of Ashland. So we went out there, collected our fish, worked them up, brought them back to the lab, and that's where we could start with our experimentation. So here we are watching and analyzing some of our video recordings that we took of these fish foraging. So here's an actual foraging footage from one of these trials that I'm going to share with you. So this is a top view of that tank from one of those suspended cameras. And you can see the lake trout at the top there. So I'll start this. You'll see the Siskiwet swimming around, and then the prey swims in from the bottom right there and then nails it. So we can break this down looking at the things that we specifically looked for here when we were analyzing. The first is that orientation toward the prey. When do they see it? When do they turn toward it? And then we measure the distance between the predator and the prey. That's that reaction distance. How far can they see their prey? We also looked at whether there was an attack and then whether this was a successful attack. And in this case it was. They got a capture. So we analyzed all this footage. And then what we found is that during the day, below 150 meters, it's pretty dark. Our capture rates were pretty low for prey. The reaction distance to prey, how far they could see them, were very small. So based on light intensity at night around the Lake Superior area, we actually determined that there's probably a lot of foraging going on at night when they move higher in the water column here, and this is likely where they're capturing a lot of their prey. That's kind of what we found with that study. So then this research was actually awarded a scholarship through Minnesota Sea Grant and Muskies, Inc. And with that money, I was able to attend the National American Fisheries Society meeting out in Portland. And this is a great time. It was the first time I was able to present my work nationally to a national audience. Okay. And then with this work also, I received my master's. Here's my dissertation here. And my wife and I with my degree. Okay. And then I got my first publication out of this work as well. So this got the ball rolling for me for my academic career here. Okay, and there are actually 2 other publications that came out of this Sea Grant funded work as well that are currently in the publication process. So the first one here is looking at how the Siskoet habitat changes throughout different seasons and over a 24-hour period. So based on that light intensity where they can detect prey, we can predict what depths they would be at throughout Lake Superior. So on the right of this figure here, that's a cross section of the lake, and it just shows what depths we would expect to see them at in different seasons and at different times. Now, the other study that came out of this was in the initial study, we looked at how they were able to forage for the pelagic prey or offshore prey. And then in a study that this spurred, we looked at how they were able to forage for benthic prey, the deep water sculpin that live on the bottom, and then we were able to compare the two. Okay. So that was how Sea Grant provided funding for me, which helped with this initial work, but they also helped me in many other ways. One of these was the importance of science communication, so public outreach with this type of information. So one of the SACE issues, so Minnesota Sea Grant puts out this publication that looks to engage the public in the type of research that's being funded by Sea Grant here, and I was lucky enough to have my research written about in one of these publications. So this one talked about how I started with this project and what depth we'd expect to see these fish at. But this inspired me then to kind of continue with this outreach. Some other opportunities I had while working with Sea Grant were I was actually on KBJR News one night, and I was talking about diurnal vertical migration, or how these fish within Lake Superior move, throughout a 24-hour period from the depths to the surface and back and forth. I also was able to participate with the Sea Grant Files, the radio show or podcast. And as I said, this inspired me. This type of outreach, I thought it was really important to let the public know what you're doing. So I created this blog here, and I called it Char Sighted, a little pun here, because lake trout are char. And what I did with this is I kind of broke down my research into really simple terms so that I could approach a lay audience. So, and I actually got some feedback at talks. People have come up to me and say, I saw your blog, this was really helpful. And actually, at my current job here, they said this is one of the reasons they hired me. They liked how I was able to communicate science. So Sea Grant inspired me in that way. The other thing Sea Grant has shown me here is the importance of volunteering. So I had many opportunities to volunteer with Minnesota Sea Grant. The first started off in 2015. I created a fisheries club, or society here, subunit, at the University of Minnesota, Duluth. And one of the things we wanted to do was a beach cleanup. So Sea Grant helped us out with the funding for that. They coordinated this study. They provided all of our materials for us for this beach sweep. They went out there and picked up trash with us, and they provided food for all of us volunteers as well. So this was the first year, 2015. We continued this in 2016 as well. Here we are with Sharon Moen here. And then we also did it in 2017 as well, my last year at UMD. Here we have Don Schreiner and Sharon. And then we have a newest member of Minnesota UMD AFS here, my son. Okay. Other things we were able to do volunteer-wise with Minnesota Sea Grant are we would volunteer at boat shows and at local home shows, and with Sea Grant we'd kind of inform the public about the importance of checking for aquatic invasive species. So more public outreach in that way. And I've also been able to use Minnesota Sea Grant as a resource. So we started, a buddy and I started Cafe Scientifique, Twin Ports, and this similar is community outreach. We'd bring in scientists and they discuss current scientific interests or research, and they do it over a pint of beer at a local cafe. Sharon Moen here with Minnesota Sea Grant, their science coordinator, has had previous experience with this, so she helped us kick this whole thing off. We met with her, chatted about how we should do this, which venues, what was the best approach. And Cafe Scientifique in Duluth, Twin Ports, is still going strong today, so thank you for that. All right, so another resource that Sea Grant has been to me is introducing me to influential people within the field and Lake Superior Committee. So here we have Chancellor Black of UMD. We have our Sea Grant, Minnesota Sea Grant Director here, John Downing, and then we have Commissioner Larry Pogamiller. So particularly here, this was part of Water Action Week in Minnesota, and we were talking about Lake Superior as a resource to Minnesota. So I was able to meet and chat with these people, which is a really great experience. Hey, and then just this summer here, I finished up my PhD with UMD. Here's my family here. And then I have moved on, and I'm currently an visiting assistant professor for the College of St. Benedict's and St. John's University. And here I'm working as a physiologist, bringing some of my fish interests into play here. And actually just found out I'm going to be here 3 more years, so I'm very excited about that. Okay. And I look forward to future continued collaborations with Minnesota Sea Grant here as I pick up my fisheries research, hopefully starting this summer. So in recap here, Minnesota Sea Grant has been important to me through their financial support. They're helping me understand the importance of science communication, the importance of volunteering, and then they've been a great resource to me as well. So with that, I'd like to say thank you to Minnesota Sea Grant and for all of you for listening. So thanks.